Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at another buffed Pokemon from the Season 25 balance update, and that is the buff to Shadow Sableye. Shadow Sableye gets extra damage on foul play, and with this increase in base damage, honestly Shadow Sableye once again feels absolutely amazing to play. I use Shadow Sableye, as most people do, as a safe switch on today's team. I'm running a very basic strong meta team with Shadow Steelix, Shadow Sableye, and Mandibuzz, and the team ended up working out amazingly. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at the newly buffed Shadow Sableye. Off to a tough start in game number 1, leading Shadow Steelix into Gourgeist. A safe switch into the Sableye, and my opponent is going to respond with Furret. Now this is a matchup where Shadow Sableye now cleanly wins the zeros. Look at that foul play damage. Furret is an incredibly bulky Pokemon. It double resists Shadow Claw, but Furret's going to have to give up a shield, because Shadow Sableye can just output some crazy damage. Furret will get the farm down, but they paid a pretty steep price. In comes Steelix. Steelix gonna be no shield in the Trailblaze and looking for a full Thunderfang down. Trailblaze will do quite a bit of damage as my opponent is already boosted. This should be a boosted Swift, but it's gonna come very close to knocking out. The Swift is gonna land. Opponent tries to snipe with an Incinerate on Gourgeist, but I'm able to hold on to my energy and send out Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz got double buffed this update with improvements to Shadow Ball and Foul Play. Unfortunately, both of Mandibuzz's fast moves are absolutely terrible with Air Slash and Snarl. I decided to test out Snarl for pacing purposes, but realistically, I think both these fast moves are pretty poor. Shadow Ball lands big damage onto the Gourgeist, and that sets up a perfect farm down. In the back is Shadow Wall Rain. I farm up just shy of 100 energy, and I will go for the Foul Play. Foul Play into the Wall Rain will be shielded. Mandibuzz gonna farm up. I thought I had the back-to-back Foul Plays there, but it turns out I am just shy. Foul Play is gonna connect. Quick switch into the Steelix, and Steelix is now gonna get to land a Psychic Fangs. This will put them into Foul Play range. In comes Gourgeist. Gourgeist gets farmed down. Wall Rain farms down the Steelix, but with 2 shields to hide behind, it's just winning in the endgame for Mandibuzz. The shield goes up on the Icicle Spear. We get to fire off the Foul Play, and despite a really rough lead, Shadow Sableye able to generate a shield advantage, and then Mandibuzz able to clean up endgame. Speaking of rough leads, the bad leads continue. Shadow Steelix into Altaria. I safe switch into Shadow Sableye, and my opponent is going to respond with Morpeko. I can't stress enough how important it was to bait out Morpeko, because Morpeko would absolutely delete my Mandibuzz in the back. Shadow Sableye, with this increased foul play damage, I believe can actually win this matchup if it's up a little bit of energy, just going straight foul play. That's how hard foul play hits, even when it's resisted. So I go for the foul play. They end up calling the bait. A nice bait call there, recognizing that I wasn't going to go for the Dazzling Gleam, but I'm always just going to be playing for switch advantage. So I end up shielding 2 Aura Wheels, but I get a really nice farm down. I exit with a ton of energy. Back in comes the Altaria. I will go for the foul play. Question is, can I get to the Dazzling Gleam? Foul play gets no shielded. Well, I'm just going to go for another foul play now, just try and lock in a little bit of damage. Foul play number 2 into Altaria is going to be connecting. They're going to switch. In the back is Dunsparce, and this is quite bad. Farming up a lot of energy with the Steelix, and I'll see him P-tie with a potential Crunch. Now, I don't have Crunch, but obviously my opponent does not know that. So I will go for the Psychic Fangs, hoping against hope that my opponent puts up a shield. And they do. They respect the Crunch, and that works out very nicely. They'll overfarm perfectly. They're not going to let me get to another Psychic Fangs, and Drill Run will take the KO. I want an ability to catch a move, so I wait down the switch timer, send in Mandibuzz, and we get the perfect catch onto Shadow Sableye. Things were looking pretty tough in this game up until that catch, but with that catch, I think we're winning. Back in comes Altaria, firing off the Sky Attack. Mandibuzz is going to get that Snarl down, and now my opponent brings back in the Dunsparce. But unfortunately for the Dunsparce, 2 Rock Slides are just not going to be enough damage to KO the Mandibuzz. My opponent has the energy now, but this foul play should just about take the knockout. Foul play will land, Dunsparce hangs on, but we get the Snarl down and secure the win. Picking up a very bad lead in the next match, Shadow Steelix into Shadow Quagsire. A safe switch into the Shadow Sableye, and my opponent fires off the Aqua Tail and then sends out Licky Licky. Quagsire is uniquely positioned to be an extremely difficult Pokemon for me to beat. It is Aqua Tail for the Steelix, and of course it has the hard-hitting Stone Edge for the Mandibuzz. Foul play connects onto Licky Licky. Sableye gonna go for the Dazzling Gleam. Look at Sableye putting in so much work in this matchup. Licky Licky will take the knockout with Shadow Ball, and now I bring back in Steelix. Steelix unfortunately just misses the farm down. That's a 1 HP survive from Licky Licky. but they only get to a body slam. So I do get a pretty nice farm. In comes Mandibuzz. In the back is Galarian Moltres. And unfortunately, my choice of moveset is going to lose me this game. If I had Air Slash, I'm probably fine. Unfortunately, I don't have Air Slash, so I'm in a lot of trouble. Here, my opponent's going to overfarm massively. I believe they even go over 100. They're waiting for me to throw some energy before they can go for a potential Brave Bird. And man, if I had any kind of neutral damage, I think we'd be okay. But unfortunately, this game is looking like a loss. Quick switch into the Steelix, answer with the Quagsire, but with 2 shields still up for my opponent, I really don't see a path forward in this game. My opponent no shields the first, as they should, and these Thunderfangs, even to the -1 defense Quagsire, still do not do a lot of resistant damage. I'm able to make it to a second Psychic Fangs. This will be pressuring a shield away from my opponent. Psychic Fangs is going to be shielded, Switch Clock not yet available, and unfortunately I can't farm down before they're able to make another Aqua Tail. So I have to try and get aggressive, pivoting into the Mandibuzz, going for the foul play. Mandibuzz's foul play does get shielded. Quagsire switches into Galarian Moltres. And man, this moveset choice on Mandibuzz, no flying type charge attack or fast attack, is really backfiring, as I'm just going to get swept by this Moltres. Moltres will take the knockout with the fly. 1 Thunderfang will not KO, and Steelix is about to get knocked out by a Brave Bird. It may be a Steel type, but Brave Bird is an incredibly efficient move, and we will lose that game. Decent lead in the next match, Steelix into Galarian Corsola. Now, Galarian Corsolas will almost always throw this charge attack as soon as they get it, and that's because they want to lock in some damage before a potential crunch. But this honestly sets up the Sableye really nicely, as now the Sableye can be save switched into the Corsola. My opponent ends up save switching and Annihilate. It's a simultaneous swap. Here, I actually go for a CMP tie. I was a little bit worried that if I threw the foul play on 5, it wouldn't KO. In hindsight, I think it probably would have, so then I wouldn't have had to take this damage. But in the moment, I'm judging my damage calcs off of what I knew the foul play damage to be previously rather than what it is now. In comes Corsola. Corsola hoping for a farm down, but it's not going to happen. Corsola does exit with a Nightshade. In comes the Mandibuzz, and they blind through a Nightshade. They were expecting the Steelix, they blind through the Nightshade, and in the back, my opponent has Azumarill. Azumarill, unfortunately not a good matchup for the Mandibuzz, but I still have the Steelix, and Steelix will be able to apply a lot of pressure with Psychic Fangs. I'm going for Psychic Fangs number 2. This is going to start to do some really meaningful damage. My opponent is running out of HP. They shield up the Psychic Fangs because look how much damage the Thunder Fangs just did. They would have gotten farmed down unless they shielded. In comes Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz shielding up the Ice Beam. Opponent switches into Galarian Corsola, but Mandibuzz gets to double up on Shadow Balls. Shadow Ball number 1 is going to be knocking out that Galarian Corsola. Shadow Ball number 2 locked and loaded for the Azumarill. So a bit of a tricky endgame, but Steelix had a lot of play into my opponent's team, and were able to get the win. Pretty bad lead in the next match, Steelix into Blaziken. A save switch into the Shadow Sableye, and even a resisted Aura Sphere is going to do a ton of damage. I no shield, it's a Blaze Kick. That almost one-shots. They try and snipe with their Sableye, but on 1 HP, the bulk weight Sableye hangs on and pressures a shield. In comes Mandibuzz, but this is looking like a very difficult game to win. Mandibuzz is going to be hit for big damage with either Power Gem or Dazzling Gleam. There is the Power Gem. Unfortunately, I can't knock out with a Shadow Ball. Otherwise, I would go for it since it is the harder hitting move. So instead, I'm going to be looking at going for a double foul play. But before I get there, the pacing on Sableye, really good. They're able to make another Power Gem, and I'm just going to overfarm as much energy as I possibly can. This foul play will easily KO the Sableye, and I have an entire Shadow Ball's worth of energy loaded. In comes Blaziken, and I'm not baiting. I'm going straight for the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball into the Blaziken, takes the knockout in the back. Oh no, it's Gourgeist. Mandibuzz does amazingly here, but I'm just so low, and the Gourgeist is going to destroy this Steelix. Foul play is going to land. I cannot get to another foul play, so I switch and transfer the Incinerate damage onto the Steelix. Gourgeist fires off the Shadow Ball. That's big damage. Steelix just so far behind on energy, and unfortunately, even though I'm 1 off the foul play on Mandibuzz, I'm just going to lose this game. And that's because Gourgeist is going to fully incinerate me down and exit with a charge attack loaded, and I don't have any energy on the Mandibuzz. Well, I have some, but I don't have enough. So back in comes the Mandibuzz. It's a sad day for a Mandibuzz getting knocked out by a Gourgeist, and we will lose that game. Pretty bad lead in the next match, Shadow Steelix into Primeape. Safe switch to Shadow Sableye. Primeape going to be staying in this matchup, firing off a Rage Fist. Rage Fist will do just a little bit of damage, and now out comes Charjabug. This is a scenario where having Power Gem could be nice. Unfortunately, I do not have Power Gem. However, the good thing for me is they have to undertap instantly, because if I get another foul play, it does so much damage that it would just KO. And now I can go for one of the most aggressive Thunder Fangs down ever. In comes Steelix, and I'm just going to absorb all these X-Scissors, fully farm down, and I should be in a pretty nice spot. X-Scissor not going to do much. My opponent gets aggressive. They pivot into the Celio. I bank a ton of energy, and what looks like a very weird play, I bring Mandibuzz into Celio. I know Mandibuzz is really going to struggle into that Primate. I think my win condition is going to be a ton of energy on the Steelix to throw a bunch of Psychic Fangs at the Primate. Mandibuzz is honestly holding its own pretty nicely against Celio, because Celio is spamming out Surf, but Surf, honestly not a big problem for the Mandy. Mandy gonna be firing off Shadow Ball now. Shadow Ball will hit harder. Shadow Ball lands into the Celio. There's a simultaneous switch. Steelix into Primeape, and this is exactly what I needed to happen. Psychic Fangs is gonna be shielded, but there's more where that came from. Shadow Steelix just too far ahead. Another Psychic Fangs, another shield. Steelix gonna have to put up the final shield itself, but Steelix is already at a third Fangs. The Fangs is reached. Opponent Switch Clock is not available. This is gonna be good night, Primeape. Primeape gets KO'd. Back in comes Charjabug, but X-Scissor is just not going to do enough damage. X-Scissor is going to land onto the Steelix. There's the switch to Celio. Celio gets farmed down. In comes Charjabug. I switch into the Mandibuzz as they fire off the charge attack. I put up the shield. The Snarl that goes through will be enough to KO Charjabug and take home the win. Moving to the next match, we see a pretty familiar lead, and that's going to be Steelix into Galarian Corsola. Same game plan as before. Corsola fires off the Nightshade, and then I send out the Sableye. You'll notice that in this game, I actually got one turn switch with the Sableye instead of 0, and that's because I queued up the switch too late. In this scenario, from a charge attack, I should always be able to get 0 if I queue up the switch instantly, but in this particular matchup, I believe I was distracted while battling, so I didn't end up hitting the switch button until late, and that's what caused that switch to be one turn. In comes Azumarill, and this is a pretty nice Pokemon to bait out. Sableye gonna have some pretty nice damage output into the Azumarill, and Sableye just gonna have to let itself go as Ice Beam will take the knockout. Back in comes Steelix. Steelix farming up a ton of energy. Psychic Fangs would not be enough to take the KO, so I full send the Earthquake, and Earthquake will deliver a knockout. In the back, oh, it's Gastrodon, and this is exactly what I was hoping to see. With the Azumarill out of the way, Mandibuzz is primed to sweep. Foul play, takes the knockout. Back in comes the Gastrodon. And this poor Gastrodon is going to be an absolute shambles. Gastrodon obviously can run Water Pulse and typically does. Water Pulse means that at the very least, it will be able to hit for neutral damage, but even several Water Pulses landing is not going to move the needle. This is a rank 7 Mandibuzz, one of the bulkiest Mandibuzzes you could possibly have. I'm not quite sure what the correct combination of charge attacks to go for here is, if it's double Shadow Ball, triple Foul Play, or what, but I end up going for the double Shadow Ball. Double Shadow Ball is going to set up a nice Snarl down for the Mandibuzz. I'm going to be no-shielding everything since I do not get knocked out. They go for a Body Slam. There's another charge attack loaded. Gastrodon emptying the tank. A Water Pulse still does not knock out, and we're able to take the win. Great lead in the final match. Steelix into Tentacruel. Opponent safe switches. Oh no. Into Furret. I get to bank 5 Thunder Fangs and send out the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz has a very, very commanding matchup. Furret will opt for the Trailblaze. Furret knows this matchup is the worst case scenario, so it's going to do what it can to try and buff up its damage and maybe try and make this matchup competitive. Swift is going to do a bit more damage than it would have because of that boost, and now I get to return fire with the Foul Play. Foul Play lands, immediately followed by Foul Play number 2. This will not take the knockout onto the Furret, but it is going to be getting that Furret pretty low. Furret has honestly put in some pretty nice damage onto this Mandibuzz. Furret Swift is going to be getting Mandy deep into the red. Mandy does get that Snarl farm down. In comes Tentacruel. I thought about going for the Shadow Ball, but I think I can actually survive the Acids and get to a second Foul Play, and I can. The high rank Mandibuzz paying dividends. Mandibuzz's Foul Play is going to get them low. They farm me down. I send in the Steelix, and I'm more than happy just to let this go. 2-shield Shadow Sableye is what's going to be needed in this game, so I know shield in the back is Gourgeist, and I respond with the Shadow Sableye. Sableye's down on energy, but the Shadow Claws will deal some pretty consistent damage to this Gourgeist over time. Sableye will fire off the Foul Play just to grab the shields away from the opponent. I know I have energy on the Steelix, so worst case scenario, if I need to combo it with Psychic Fangs later on to take the knockout, I will have the ability to do so. another Incinerate, and another Foul Play getting launched by Sableye. This Foul Play will be pressuring the shield. In comes Tentacruel. Tentacruel trying to get to a charge attack, but it cannot get there. Sableye able to take the knockout with the Foul Play. In comes Gourgeist. I throw one Shadow Claw and then snipe with the Psychic Fangs, as that should put them in range. Psychic Fangs takes the knockout, and Steelix gets its revenge on Gourgeist. Now some final thoughts on the team as a whole and Shadow Sableye specifically. I think this team is a pretty solid team. However, I don't think I would run this Mandibuzz moveset again. I think that having at least one move on the Mandibuzz, whether it's Air Slash, probably more than likely Air Slash, but something that has flying damage would be nice, because there were a few games where I ended up having to change my play patterns quite a bit because I didn't have a flying move on the Mandibuzz. I think as well you could probably pretty easily replace the Mandibuzz with Gourgeist and still have probably even better results. Because I think Gourgeist does a lot of what you want Mandibuzz to do, but Gourgeist just does it better, because Gourgeist has a far better moveset. Now, as far as Shadow Sableye, I was extremely impressed using Shadow Sableye. Shadow Sableye, it felt like it could output some serious damage. The fact that in some matchups where Foul Play is resisted against like Glacier Dark types like a Morpeko or Greninja, you can land a Foul Play and just Shadow Claw down. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I also really like that Furret Zeros matchup because a lot of the times people see a Ghost Safe Switch, they want to put their normal type on it. So the fact that you're a Ghost that can just force a shield advantage every single time is a really big plus. So I really like Shadow Sableye. As far as Shadow Sableye IVs for this meta, I honestly haven't deep dived a whole lot. I decided to go with just a pretty basic bulk weight Shadow Sableye. I do have an attack weight one because in some previous metas, it was really nice to get certain Shadow Claw breakpoints. I haven't looked into the IVs too much as to whether bulked or whether an attack weighted would be good. Honestly, I think either one can put in a ton of work in this meta because the big thing, of course, is going to be that increased Foul Play damage. That increased Foul Play damage is no joke, and there were a lot of games where I felt like last season Shadow Sableye would have ended up losing it, but this season Shadow Sableye proved to be extremely clutch. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. Thank you guys so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.